All right, everyone. Thank you for your patience while we got set up this evening. Apologize for the late start. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Hillsborough. I'll call this meeting to order. Before we begin with our business, I just want to welcome all of our visitors here tonight. For those of you who are new to our commission and what we do here, just want to let you know that we are citizen volunteers who've been appointed by our city council, and we look at items such as zoning ordinance and amendments and zoning, and then we as a commission look at those and provide recommendations to the city council, and it's the city council who will make the final legislative decision. So we're an advisory body of citizen volunteers. We appreciate having you here. We anticipate that some of you will want to participate in our meeting tonight, and at the appropriate time we'll give you some instructions on how to do that. So our first item of business is item number 2, to deliberate and act on the approval of minutes of the June 22nd, 2026 meeting. Any comments, corrections to those minutes? If not, the chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve those minutes. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to item number 3, which is to deliberate and act on a request to replat lots 68 and 69 Tarleton Edition, becoming lots 68R1, 69R1, and 69R2 in the city of Hillsborough, being the same property by reference as recorded in volume 2346, page 329 of the official public records of Hill County, Texas. And this property is also known as the property south of 705 Mackenzie Avenue. Let's see, there you are. Richard, go ahead and tell us about this item, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Yeah, I switched locations for the recording. This is located just to the south of 705 Mackenzie Avenue. You see the area in black that is affected by the proposed replat and the 200-foot notification area outlined in yellow. For this replat, I did not get any responses from the notification area. Of course, this is coming back to y'all from previous meetings, only it's a little bit different now. Progress to the next slide, please. Instead of the request replatting it into 4 lots, the applicant is requesting 3 lots, 2 50-foot lots on the south, and then a larger 90-foot wide lot on the north. The only comment on the review letter was for the developer, the applicant, to work with Public Works on ensuring utilities, which they're in the process of doing. So all other comments on this plat have been addressed.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone here from the 200-foot notification area who would like to speak to the commission on this matter? All right. Anyone else who would like to comment on this? All right. I'll turn it over to the commission. No questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Is this still adequate to get the appropriate parking and the appropriate setbacks for everything? Seems like you're getting smaller, as if you imagine.
The 2 lots on the south are actually 3 feet wider than previous plats, or 2.5 feet wider than previous plats, and so they're a little bit wider. So it will, and they meet the requirements in the ordinance.
Okay, so all requirements are met. Off-street parking will be part of the site plan.
Yes.
Would you like to make a motion? Okay, so we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Can I get repeat the motion?
Motion, second. All right, we'll move on to item number 4, and that regards a replat of lots 7X1, Block A, Southwest Outlet Center Edition, becoming lots 7R and 8X, Block A, Southwest Outlet Center Edition, in the city of Hillsborough, being a portion of the same property by reference as recorded in volume 2246, page 345 of the official public records of Hill County, Texas. This is also known as 222 I-35 Service Road Northeast.
Next slide, please. So this is the location of the proposed replat. This is for the development of a coffee establishment in the northernmost portion of that area outlined in black. There are some comments left to be addressed, so the recommendation here would be for conditional approval that those corrections are addressed. From the 200-foot notification area, I did not receive any comments. Next slide, please. And so this is the plat. It's on its side, so if you imagine this rotated, the coffee establishment would be on the northernmost, or the spot that is furthest to the left if you're looking at that plat.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the 200-foot notification area for this property who would like to address the commission? And anyone else who would like to address the commission on this matter? Hearing none. Commission?
Just a quick question. As much as I love coffee, isn't there already a coffee establishment in this same area?
Not far, but it's a permitted use by right, so if someone wants to plat property for a coffee establishment, it's permitted by right.
Sure. But there is a Starbucks right on this same corridor, isn't there?
I believe not far from here, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, the chair will entertain a motion. We got a motion to approve? And a second. All in favor? Motion carries. All right, that brings us to item number 5, which is to deliberate on an amendment of the terms of the 2007 zoning ordinance, known as ordinance number 02007-0101, last amended in July 11th of 2025. And the purpose is to add data center to the list of uses in the permitted use table in section 211, and to amend supplemental conditions and special regulations in section 2.12 in regards to special conditions for data centers, and to add data center to the list of definitions in section 7.51 of the Hillsborough zoning ordinance. Director, go ahead.
So this is, you might recall this was tabled from your May 11th meeting. There were some concerns that were brought up at the May meeting on this particular text amendment. One of those concerns was that the definition was too broad, and then there were some other concerns that more requirements were needed. So this item, after additional research, after additional staff meetings, we're bringing this back, and the definition that was presented originally in May was intentionally broad to include any kind of a data center. And I'll get into some more of that in a little bit. And then some of those other concerns that were brought up regarding additional requirements, A lot of those requirements can be addressed in the development agreement, which is a proposed condition to be applied to the data center use. Can you progress to the next slide, please? So this is the definition: a facility or facilities that house digital electronic equipment for internet site hosting, electric data storage and transfer, credit card and financial transaction processing, telecommunications, and or other activities that support the electronic-based economy. So the question was or the issue was with this definition being too broad. So it really needs to be broad, because if it's not, then if you only specify one particular aspect or one particular type of a data center, other types could be left out. And if that is what would request to come, then it would automatically fall under heavy industrial uses and be permitted by right. What that means is allowed with no kind of specific use permit process, for example. And that's the big reason why this agenda item is before you tonight and why it's on the agenda. It's to separate data centers from other heavy industrial uses, to define the term, and then include some supplemental conditions, one of which is the requirement of a development agreement, which right now is not included as a condition under just regular heavy industrial uses. And there would be no specific use permit process for it either. So if one was to come right now without this text amendment being in place, there would be no due process to review that specific data center under. Next slide. So of those supplemental conditions, one of those would be the requirement of a site plan. That's already in our supplemental conditions in the zoning ordinance. This would just apply it to this particular use. Then there's a couple others that regard setback requirements. So if one would have a greater noise level than 85 decibels at the property line, they would be required to be located further than 1,000 feet. They wouldn't be able to be located within that 1,000 feet of an area zoned for residential uses. And then also an additional supplemental condition would be a 100-foot setback from property lines. And then, of course, the requirement of a development agreement. Next slide. Presently, and I know I said this already, I want to mention this again. Right now, a data center would be allowed under heavy industrial uses. Those are permitted by right in the heavy industrial zoning district. That means that there's presently no requirements or no process for one to go through Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council should one ask to come. There's presently no requirement for a development agreement. There are presently no additional setback requirements above and beyond that which are already required under heavy industrial zoning. This proposed text amendment separates that use, and it creates a due process. It creates the rule that would then have to be followed for data centers. It separates that data center use from heavy industrial uses, and it creates a due process for them to go before Planning and Zoning and City Council prior to approval. It would require both a specific use permit and a development agreement, and then the additional setback requirements not presently in place. I know that there's a lot of other concerns that have been voiced at previous meetings. A lot of those things are things that can then be further defined in a development agreement, and I know among those there's also some environmental concerns. Many of those things are things that TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, and the EPA, they already have standards in place for things to have to follow that are far greater than anything we could put into the zoning ordinance. So there's already things in place that would address many of those concerns. But specifically about the development agreement, we have an additional staff person here that can speak more to the difference between the development agreement and the types of things that can address to address some of those concerns.
Thank you, Richard. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jessica True. I'm the Executive Director of the Hillsborough Economic Development Corporation. And I'll just echo what Richard has already said. As of right now, a data center can come in without any additional processes above and beyond being heavy industrial. And to put it simply, the difference between the definition and the development agreement is the definition is who the rules apply to, and the development agreement is what the rules are. So the more that you specify in a definition, the more you are limiting who you are applying those rules to, and the more loopholes that are created. And then in the development agreement, you can be very specific to the project because no two projects are the same. And especially in an industry that is tech at heart, everything that they do changes so often that the more that we try and specify what is and isn't allowed, the less able we are to deal with the things that we haven't even thought about yet and that are going to continue to come up as that technology evolves. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? We're going to have an opportunity for those in the audience who'd like to address this to do so here shortly. But before we do that, I just wanted to see if the commission had any questions for the director while he's up there.
So if I understand you correctly, and thank you for that supplemental information, as it stands today, if somebody wanted to come in and purchase property, put up a data center, they're in under heavy use. We have no way to throttle that. We have no way to put on special stipulations or to protect our community and the residents today.
Correct. There would be nothing above and beyond what's already in the zoning ordinance as far as heavy industrial uses. So if you imagine just any other industrial development, it'd be very similar guidelines that would be able to be enforced for something like this, but it would be permitted by right.
Okay, thank you. So by adding this definition, then we do have a mechanism to request protections for the city and for the residents here by requiring a special use permit and everything else that goes along with that. That means any studies that need to be done, anything that we're going to ask the developers to do, like address water issues, electricity issues, and all the EPA issues that are out there concerning these centers. So if we do define it, then we have a way of controlling that.
Correct. And it would be a specific use permit, and it'd be the requirement of the development agreement. All of that would go along with it. But right now, we don't have that tool in place. This would be creating that tool.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Or that mechanism. Yeah.
I have concerns definitely with just in general that currently a data center could come into heavy industrial, and that seems like something that we might need to look at. So I'm definitely wondering what authority does the city currently lack that this amendment intends to provide, which we've clarified, and this definitely should give us more grounds to have specific conditions through the development agreement, which I do understand that it can evolve with different projects, but it feels like there should be some kind of set parameters across the board that would address all of the things. And I don't know what that looks like, but you know, the fact that anyone can just come into heavy industrial without any kind of permitting seems odd to me, because heavy industrial is one of the areas where we would have issues with environmental concerns and, you know, traffic, and do we have infrastructure to support the things, and emergency needs
So,
if an accident does happen. So our section 1.3 says that the zoning ordinance exists to protect public health, public safety, adequate water, adequate sewer, transportation, appropriate land use, and the general welfare of the community. And I think these are all legitimate planning considerations, that it does impact the data center, but I think it may be larger than that itself. But it does not say that zoning should simply encourage every type of development. So that's always the concern in defining it, is that now is that creating an easier pathway for it to just take over? I get that that's a lot of the public concern, for sure. My specific concerns with what we're
And
proposing
can I,
tonight
And if I can just, I want to make sure the public has a chance to comment. Did you have a question for Director Reinhardt to
Yes.
help clarify? Okay.
So what evidence is supporting the current setbacks requirement of 100-foot setback from the property line and 80-foot decibels as a 1,000-foot setback requirement from residential areas? What data do we have to support that that's an adequate distance to protect our public?
So there's a lot that you just said there, and I want to go back, and I do want to clarify something that you said earlier in your comments. Industrial development does still have to be permitted, as far as building permits and such like that, and there still are requirements that they have to follow. This amendment is dealing with the use. So the specific, the actual use of a data center is what this is addressing specifically. As far as those distances, those are just being proposed as minimum. It doesn't mean that someone couldn't go above and beyond what's being proposed. Those are just taken as minimum. And then also, when you look at the condition for, might need to go back a slide on this one. So for example, the facilities generating greater than 85 decibels of noise at the property line shall not be located within 1,000 feet of an area zoned for residential uses. That's at the property line, and the further away from that you get, the quieter that noise level gets. So once you get a certain distance away, or even at that property line, you're going to hear traffic on the highway before you hear the data center, or you're going to hear someone mowing their lawn before the data center. 85 was chosen because that's the noise level where it becomes a public nuisance.
Right, it still has concerns with exposure from 4 to 8 hours can affect the human body at 85 decibels, so that is a concern.
So in some of this, like this text amendment can always be amended later. So just like right now, the proposal is to add, or is to, amend the zoning ordinance to include this use. It can always be amended later again as we learn more. But right now, again, there is nothing in place to protect in regards to data center. There's nothing in the zoning ordinance that's currently separating it, so that's what this would do.
I do appreciate that we've gotten things together very quickly, and I know I was not here on the last meeting due to family circumstances, but I did watch it live, and it seemed like at the time we were all, very gung-ho about doing appropriate research, and now it seems like we can do that later, and that's a concern.
Again, those are things for the development agreement.
But we don't have any specifics for a development agreement that I'm aware of. So if we don't have any specifics, then how do we know that we're ensuring anything? There are performance standards across all heavy industrial use that could be applied across the board that could potentially protect us from other future things that we don't even know about. But limitations on noise, vibration, lighting, traffic, odors, emissions, heat emissions, especially is something, water consumption, stormwater management, emergency response planning, screening and landscaping, all of these things, if we're requiring them, how are we going to measure that and enforce that? Do we have infrastructure for that?
Any additional questions for the director?
I mean, I feel like we need more information if we don't have data to back up these specific numbers and more information. I think would ease public feelings about it as well.
Okay.
But I think we're going to hear from public.
Yeah, I'd like to hear those comments, and then we'll have a chance to discuss after that. All right. If there's not any additional questions for the director, we'll go ahead and move to the next phase of this particular item. So what we're going to do is provide an opportunity for those in the audience who would like to address this matter to do so. Some of you have filled out one of these request forms. They're over on the table here if you have not filled one out yet. So we will call on people who filled those out. You will be given 3 minutes to address the commission. We have a little timer, and we'll kind of gently remind you when you're getting close to your 3 minutes. You're not obligated to use the whole 3 minutes, but we do ask that you keep your comments within that time period so that everyone who wants to is able to comment. It would greatly help us out if you could address this amendment specifically to help us understand what your thoughts are. We're especially interested in hearing from those of you who live in the city of Hillsborough, since this is a city of Hillsborough commission, and this will go to the city of Hillsborough council potentially if it passes. So we would like to hear from any of you who live within the city limits, especially. And what our neighbors think around Hillsborough is important to us too, so not to worry, we will hear from any of you who want to address us this evening on this matter. And again, appreciate you being here. So with that, we'll go ahead and open the floor to anybody who would like to address the commission. And I'm going to start with the list that I have. And we ask that you go to the podium over here because we have a microphone, so we'll be able to pick up what you're saying. And the first person I have is Robbie Anderson. If you please come forward, give us your name and address for the record, and go ahead and give us your thoughts.
Hello, my name is Robbie Anderson. I live at 104 Hightower Street in Hillsborough, just east of the new Chick-fil-A, a mile down that road. I don't know a whole lot about this. I came primarily just to kind of find out what was going on, see some faces, and try to put some faces and names together. But one thing that struck me as very strange, this 85 decibels of noise at the property line shall not be located within 1,000 feet of the area zone for residential uses. Where this big old data center is supposed to be coming in out here north of town, there's not a house anywhere to be seen from where that's at. And I don't know why that is even worth putting in there. I think that ought to be have a limit of 85 decibels of noise at the property line, and not being dependent upon so many feet away from a residential area. Put a limit on it right there and keep it quiet. And as far as someone saying, well, you'd be hearing a lawnmower before you hear this if you're more than 1,000 feet away, that's their opinion. Who knows? I mean, nobody has measured it. We don't have anything to measure it by. Just like this lady right over here said. We don't have any information about this stuff. And these people that are promoting this stuff are promoting stuff that the vast majority of people I know don't want it. Anyway, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Sheila Cheek. Okay, we don't, are you for or against the amendment? Okay. So you do not want an amendment as we've been discussing, or? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that was Sheila Cheek. Yep. All right, the next person is Linda Pauley.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. Save Hill County and the Texas Coalition Against Data Centers. The opposition to agenda number item 5 Tonight, the Planning and Zoning Commission is deliberating and acting to amend the city's 2007 zoning ordinance to officially recognize data center as a permitted land use, establishing special regulations and create definitions specifically tailored for that industry. The citizens of Hillsborough have been made aware that Richard Reinhardt Jr. had initiated this change at the request and recommendation of Jay Hall's Provident representative. The undisputed truth lies with an email dated April 10, 2026, which is being provided to the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight, which we ask for this information to be submitted to the official minutes of the meeting dates tonight. I respectfully ask this commission to reject this amendment. We understand the planning director's stated purpose. Jay Hayes emailed Richard Reinhardt on October 8, 2026, asking, do we need to tweak the ordinance with language to specifically allow data center uses? I'm providing this email to the Planning and Zoning Commission and asking for it to be placed in the official minutes of the meeting. The citizens need to understand that this is specifically to allow Provident to build a data center, people. And then we'll open the floodgates for Hillsborough to be inundated with data centers. The so-called leaders of Hillsborough are financially gaining millions at the expense of the citizens of Hillsborough, their health, their welfare, and their safety. It needs to be understood that adopting a process is not the same as protecting the community. By adding data center to the zoning ordinance, the city is making a policy decision that this is an appropriate land use. That decision should not be rushed. This amendment creates an entirely new land use. This ordinance does not much more than establish paperwork. It creates a brand new category of development. Once data center appears in the zoning ordinance, future applicants gain a recognized path through the city's development process. The city is no longer deciding whether this use belongs to Hillsborough. Instead, it begins deciding where and under what conditions it belongs. This is a significant policy change. Texas law is revolving. We were in Austin this morning. We're asking for a special session. We're asking for a moratorium from Governor Abbott. These things are gobbling up Texas and everyone. No one wants them. 85% do not want a data center. And it's quite apparent that the EDC and the Planning and Zoning and Ms. True over there, you guys have been working at this since April the 10th of 24. And then you have the EDC lands adjacent to Y35 Holdings, which is Win Orr's company.
10 seconds.
Okay, and it's quite apparent, it is said here, as discussed, contracts for all the lands held by the Economic Development Court, my understanding is that you are also acquiring adjacent lands.
Thank
And
you.
to the extent you do that, I would ask that we create a provision for incorporating those adjacent lands into your contract.
Thank you, Ms. Polly.
Thank you very
and
much.
if there's anything left on there, you're welcome to submit that for the record.
Sure.
All right. Brenda Ladd.
I'm Brenda Ladd. I live in Covington, but I am a concerned citizen. And it's like the rest of these people have been saying, all of these things are happening so fast. It's been thrown on us. None of us knew anything until right after the first of the year. And all this has been going on since like 24. And we don't like things being hidden from us. You know, just be up front and maybe things would have gone a little smoother. But right now, a lot of people don't trust our leaders right now. And we need leaders that we can feel comfortable with. I mean, our families are at stake. And all you can follow, even Sid Miller is out there now talking against these things right now. We just need more information and more proof before you let these monsters come in and take over our town and our country. That's all.
Basil Zangari.
All right, most of you guys know me as BZ Wasdog. I actually put my actual name on there so you guys could get to meet me here. I'm the one that exposed all these communications online about how long this has been going on. So you got to ask yourself the question here. If this has been going on since late 24, early 25, why all of a sudden is it a real rush to get it done when that moratorium got rescinded on July 9th? He scheduled it on July 10th for this meeting. I pay attention to all this stuff. You guys live in the city of Hillsborough. You asked about people who live here. It doesn't matter if we live here, we shop here, we work here, we own businesses here, we visit here. So it doesn't matter where we live. We're still part of the community. So everybody else's voice actually matters. So when you say that, you should actually include everybody. That's why we're all here. Mr. Ash is probably the only one that actually gives a damn. The other three up there, I know he had a problem with my speech on my little ticket. I thought that was hilarious, that I got a rise out of him for that. Y'all are probably in cahoots with Scott Johnson, Natasha Sawyer, Jessica True, and I don't know the new guy, George, yet. But the fact that he's here tells me a lot. Tells me they're all in cahoots. And they'll laugh, and that's okay. Let them laugh. I'll have the last laugh in the end. Bottom line is they're really trying to push this because she stands to make $3.1 million for selling her property through her shell company, Arnott. Okay? Right there in the county, unincorporated. But they need you guys to pass this zoning so he can go ahead and get the council to pass that at the council so they can go ahead and sell that property, go ahead and pass the data center. That's just a straight way of getting a data center in here quick. She said it. Why is it data center specific? We all know that Leanne Richmond doesn't live in the city. She's here to vote for Natasha Sawyer to pass this data center next month. That's why they need you guys right now to pass this, so they can go next month and pass this at the council meeting. And then she'll get her payoff from Natasha when she sells her property. That's why she's got a balloon payment at the end of the year. So you guys are either part of this or you're against it. And I guarantee if you're against it, they'll probably get you out of here and get somebody that will do their little bidding, little minions. So how much more time I got, sir? Because you keep looking at the clock, so.
45 seconds.
25 seconds, thank you. So either you're against us or you're with us. And I hope you're with us because you have to live here too. And I would hate for you guys to go in public and have to see all these faces after passing this stuff. You guys have to pass a permit anyways, building permits and anything for them to come in anyways. Just don't pass it. If you don't want a data center here, don't pass it. Don't vote on it. Thank you.
All right, that's all the people we had signed up to address the commission at this time. So if there's not any further comment, we'll go ahead and close the comments from, would you like to speak, ma'am? Okay. If you would, come on up to the microphone, give your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Jennifer Isaacs, and I live on Franklin Street. I'm not prepared to talk, but I am a little concerned because I did see some emails between Richard, Megan, and Provident about how do we, it said like, let me get it. Oh, the heavy industrial zoning does not include any specific language that allows data center uses. How do we get comfortable with the existing language? Do we need to tweak what she was saying, the ordinance with language to specifically allow data center uses? So for me, I'm like, why are we working with Provident I thought you were supposed to be working with the city, with who we are, to figure out what we want. We stood up here for hours at the last zoning meeting, and this is what y'all came up with. There's so many more things we could put in this to make it a safer bet. And y'all told us y'all were gonna do research. What research was done in this time? Did y'all sit down and actually research it, or did y'all go to Provident, who wants to bring this data center in, and get your research from them? So for me, it's concerning. It doesn't feel transparent. It doesn't feel like y'all are working for us, because most of us don't want it here. There's a very few specific people that want it here, and it's not the people who live here, not the normal people that live here. So it's concerning, and that's all I really have to say. but I think we can do better than this.
Good evening. My name is Herbert Lee. I live at 21 Falcon Lane. I don't have much to, I have a question actually. About 2 years ago we moved here, had to work with planning and zoning to try to get approval for like a mother-in-law type house in our backyard. Went through that whole process. And during that time, I was looking for the minutes and the agendas about the 2024 timeframe. I was told they weren't available because the server went down. Is that correct? Is that what what I was told?
I'm not sure what we're told. I can get those minutes for you.
Well, you can get them now, but they weren't available online. They weren't available when I asked for them either. So is this the shadow that was projected over that time so we could work secretly? I don't know. I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I'm just here to speak from the heart. It kind of seems suspicious to me, but then again, I want what's best for this community. I moved here so my family could have a good life. You see these people before you. Look at your conscience. Look at your heart. We don't want this, right? Am I right? Do we want this center? Nobody wants this except a certain few people. I'm not saying you guys are benefiting financially from it. It just seems there's a lot of shenanigans going on. This just popped out of nowhere. There was a dark period for the agendas. They weren't online 2 years ago because I was looking for them with concern about my issue. They weren't there. So I'm just going to say I've come to love Hillsboro. I want to live here. I want to stay here. I want my family to grow here. I just don't want these data centers. I think that says a lot. I don't think most of the people that we're underrepresented here. There's not many people that showed up, but we need to show up in numbers more so we can nip this in the bud. We do not want this. Thank you.
All right, last call. Anybody else like to address the commission before we close public comment? I'm sorry, I'm seeing fingers pointing all over the place. If you could give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Jan Barnes. I just want to first start off by saying y'all need to get a better announcing system because people like me that are hard of hearing, we can't understand what anybody's saying. But I live in Covington. Several of us do. There's people that live in the country. We can't get answers from the commissioner's court. The judge said he has PTSD and he's afraid somebody will say something that will set it off. So we have to come to these meetings and y'all say, well, we can't tell you anything about what's going on in the country. I've got between 600 and 800 acre solar farm 3 miles south of me. Now they're wanting to build this data center 3 miles north of me. My house already from the data field, it sits there and it vibrates. I can hear this roaring sound. And on a really hot day, it's really loud. And these decimals, 85 decimals, it's going to make it even louder. They say the cattle aren't breeding. The cows that do breed, they're losing their calves. I've got a pacemaker and a defibrillator. It says these things affect those. The people in the city, they're saying, oh goodness, we're going to fix the streets, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. What are they going to do for us in the country? I mean, yeah, they fixed 67, but it's just steady trucks running on it. They're going to totally ruin it. But, you know, we need some answers instead of y'all keeping everything gun to your hat. Because we pay y'all salary, basically. Maybe not y'all's, but Hill County's. And like I say, we want some answers. I just don't think it's right that y'all, they say, oh, well, they can't tell anybody, you know, what's been said. They had to sign a clause and all that kind of stuff. It's our county, our land, and everything else. So, you know, we should have some say in this. It shouldn't just be a few choice people up here that's going to end up making money off of it. Anyway, thank you.
Yep, one more. Name and address for the record, please.
Lila Douglas, Bynum, Texas.
Lila Douglas?
Lila Douglas, Bynum, Texas. So I've been attending city council meetings now for a year and a half or more, and I've seen a lot of different decisions made. This is only my second planning and zoning meeting to attend. I did attend the one where we talked very in-depth about the data centers and had many public speakers that said they did not want the data centers, and they provided you lots of evidence as to why you should not be considering bringing data centers into the county or the city. I think the big thing that we heard today is that we need to put something in there because otherwise they can come and do whatever they want. Well, I am in agreement with the lady here on the board that said, no, we need to change what the industrial is. We need to put new rules in there to apply that gives more control over the decisions that are being made here in the city. I don't know about what was said, it gives an open door if you put data centers in there, but I kind of believe that because once you set something as an acceptable use, then people believe that they can come here. So that's one thing I would think we need to just focus on. Heavy industrial use, redefining that, making it more strict, putting building codes out there that prevent these things that are going to impact our citizens or citizens of Hillsborough and the county. I think the other thing that's important is this development agreement. Really, that is just a contract. And anybody that comes in to do some business here, they're always going to try to get a contract that meets their needs the best. They're not caring about the citizens. At that point, it's not coming up for a vote anymore. None of us are going to be able to see what's in those development agreements. So that's the reason why that does not work. It needs to be a city building code or a city ordinance or something that defines we don't want the noise, we don't want the water usage, we don't want the heat, we don't want all the things that you heard from over 30 people in that last meeting. So I'm asking, on behalf of other people here too, that you do not approve this tonight, that you actually go do the research you said you were going to do, and you find out whether this is good for this county and this city. Because we can assure you, those of us that have done research, it's not. So please don't pass this. Take your time to do it right and put the right policies in place to prevent bad things from coming into this town. And I will say something about this SUP. I was here when that was approved. We used not to even have a SUP, special use permit. There's no rules around that either. Basically, this board decides what comes and goes, or whether a SUP is approved by the city council, presented by the Planning and Zoning Committee. There's not real rules
10
around
seconds.
that. I remember asking the question, so what dictates a SUP and who can approve it and how do you change it? Well, it's all subject to whoever's on the board to make those decisions. So it doesn't mean anything to have a SUP. It doesn't mean anything to have a development agreement. We need real rules in place that say what we want and don't want in this city and this county.
Thank you.
We don't want data centers.
All right, thank you all for your comments. We really appreciate it. At this time, we will allow the commission to go ahead and deliberate on this matter. So I turn to my fellow commissioners and ask you to comment about this amendment that we have before us.
Everybody had a chance to read the exhibits that were brought to us?
Thank you. Yep. I'll go ahead and start with a few things while y'all are kind of thinking and looking over what we've been provided. Richard, in your presentation, you used a term that is something that's used in city government, but I want to make sure that people understand what you mean when you say permitted by right. So you said that currently under our zoning, if somebody came in with a data center today, it would be permitted by right. What does that mean?
It means that it's allowed
Commissioner Mancha just rang me real quick. Is it okay if Commissioner Thrasher asks her question first?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you could.
Yeah, that's okay. You couldn't see him.
That makes sense, I would do this way. So I have personal experience in this area where we had to change the zoning ordinance for my business, a private tattoo studio, to be downtown. And from my experience, I remember that I would not have been allowed to have a private tattoo studio if we did not create that language. So if the language never existed, I would not have been allowed to just by right bring my private tattoo studio downtown. So I'm confused as to why that was that way, and now this is completely the opposite. It does not make sense to my brain.
So I'm glad you bring that up. The reason is because at that time, your business fell under the definition of tattoo studio that was already in the ordinance, which just referred to your run-of-the-mill tattoo establishment. The purpose for creating the additional use for you was to define like a different category of tattoo establishment that you would then fall under, in your case, the private tattoo studio. But because it was already defined in the zoning ordinance, that was the closest definition that you would have fallen under.
It was not. It was the
Yes, it was.
cosmetic tattooing. It was cosmetic tattooing.
I can go back and pull those minutes.
I would
We'd be
love
happy
to
to
see
share.
that, yes. Because it was cosmetic tattooing. You did not have tattoo studios allowed in the downtown.
But even with cosmetic, that was defined in the zoning ordinance.
But how would it still be allowed in? Like, logic does not make sense there, in my opinion. But I have
point
other
is,
concerns.
with heavy industrial
that I need
uses, there's nothing that would closely resemble a data center that would appear elsewhere in the zoning ordinance. It just all goes back to heavy industrial uses. When you have commercial uses, those are separated out into different things in some cases. You know, whether we're talking about personal services or tattoo establishments or piercing establishments or smoke shops or this or that. If it doesn't fall under one of those definitions already created, then it would go back to retail sales or something of that more of a general use. But since your tattoo establishment was already under another use, it defaulted to the closest definition, which was not permitted or was not allowed by right under that classification until the text amendment.
That a tattoo studio would have more regulations than a data center. That's alarming.
Well, what you fell under wasn't defined yet.
Right, this is also not defined.
But it was under another definition. And so to get closer to what you were requesting, that's why you made the text amendment request.
The overall concern is that it's much bigger, but I know Lupe wanted to say something, but I do have more to say.
You got it all night long. We can
I am
order
down
pizza
to be
for
here as long
everybody.
as it takes. I still, the question of did the staff evaluate whether the proposed setbacks are adequate for neighboring light? You know, 100 feet is right across the street. Like, that's not far, guys. I'm sorry, but like, if we don't have data to back that number, this needs to be paused. If we have started this in 2024, we can take a few more months and make sure, because it is going to be.
Commissioner Mancha?
Richard, we might have to order some pizza because we'll be here a while. The purpose of us coming here this evening is to literally protect everybody, correct? It says there's no requirements for the development agreement, there's no presently requirement to process data center, there's nothing, correct? She said a while ago, we need something today. So literally, we are trying to have something in place. That way we have requirements for tomorrow, and we can drag this out for the rest of our lives until they meet the requirements but we don't have nothing. So therefore, it says, no requirement for development agreement, there's no presently additional setback requirements, and it's already required by heavy industry, so that means we don't have nothing in place. The purpose of the agenda number 5 was for us to have something in place so that we can fight the monster, am I right? So we can say, okay, guys, you may have to move up 5 miles from here, but at least we have something. Now we don't have nothing, am I right?
Correct.
So we arguing, or we doing all this literally for nothing, because we are set here to set requirements today. We are here discussing the agenda number 5 so we can have something in place so they can tomorrow reach or say, you know what, guys, we need you 10 miles out of town. And we need all these requirements. But as of now, we don't have nothing. And it's a start. That's where we start. By having something in place. And we talked about this 2 months ago. We could have done it then. Today, we could have had a different argument or different discussion, I think. Now, I'm not against anything, but I think we need to do something and have some kind of requirements for these, whatever we're doing. But we don't have nothing. We arguing back and forth for nothing. At the end of the day, if we disagree, then what? But we don't have nothing. We can say 1 foot. I think last time it was 1,000 foot and 50 foot setback from my home. And I understand it's nothing. I don't want that thing behind my home. But at least we have something in place that we can go back and say, you know what? We're going to go, we want 5 miles away. But we don't have nothing. Whether it's in the country or, it didn't matter. So we are here to have some kind of requirements so the data center will have something that we can go back to. The city of Hillsborough, this is city of Hillsborough, not county. We don't serve the county, Hillsborough. And we say, okay guys, you gotta move out. Or you come in downtown, take over Franklin Elm and build it right there in the middle. But we don't have nothing. 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 There's nothing. So then we have to have something in place. We got to pass that. So then you can start. Us come back later. We're not passing the data center so they can come tomorrow and start building it. We're not passing any. That is not our job. We are only passing the requirements. That's it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're not wrong.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think 100 feet is adequate.
No. But we don't have even a foot now. We can come back tomorrow and say 1.5 miles from town, or 10 miles, or 50 miles. I mean, whatever.
Whatever the setbacks are in heavy industrial is what it would be.
But as of now, we don't have nothing. Nothing. Nothing.
So, do you have anything additional? Okay. So just so that, well, let me ask you, well, you haven't had a chance yet. Go ahead, Commissioner. Did you have something to say?
Only this, it's a complicated subject to be sure, and we understand the sentiment of not having data centers in here. I get that. But accusations were being made that somehow we're in cahoots with the developers. And that there's some kind of... Excuse me. Excuse me. Accusations were made. They're incorrect. They're objectionable. And they may be liable, so I'd be careful about it. I don't know any of these people. I've never seen them or heard from them. And we have, as far as I know, no financial connection whatsoever, the people in this committee. And we don't get paid, there's no salary, unless I'm missing a check. We're all volunteers. And, having said that, there is an opening on this committee, so if you feel very strongly that you want to make a contribution to the safety of the citizens in the community, I would implore you to come see Richard and get on the committee to help us collect the data that we need from whatever source it is, get it analyzed, and figure out how that plays in to the zoning process so that we can do a better job.
Do you have any other comments? Okay. And then I wanted to ask a clarifying question, Commissioner Thrasher. I just so I understand what your concerns are, what you're proposing. Are you saying that for the industrial zoning, you want to add additional conditions for the whole zoning rather than just?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I mean, if the concern is that without doing this right now, that they can just come in, that's absolutely ridiculous that we would allow that to happen. So, you know, we may need to revise the entire ordinance if it's from 2007. Things have changed since 2007 in a big way. So, yeah, I do think that with some thoughtful planning, that we could come up with something that would apply for anything that would be heavy industrial use. I mean, those are gonna be the high impact to our ecosystem businesses anyway, most likely. That's gonna be a lot more impactful than some of the smaller businesses, I would think. So, yes. I'm not sure what that looks like and how we figure that out, but we can figure it out. It may take a little time.
And I think the concern is that, and I understand your position, and I also understand where Commissioner Mancha is coming from, that currently we have no way of stopping, if that's your goal, is to stop or to at least try and get something that's favorable to the community. We don't have any say in that right now. Data center could be located there tomorrow. And so I'm trying to think about, you know, if we can be strategic about this. You know, this amendment could give us a stopgap measure, a way for us to try and limit or, you know, get in front of this. And then as a commission, we could look at the overall zoning and try and address it there as well, kind of have a two-pronged approach. Instead of just saying it's one or the other, we can at least put this in place. Then we've got a mechanism in place, and then we as a commission can address what you're talking about.
I still am not comfortable with this document. I think for me personally to vote yes on this, I would need to see data that backs up the 100-foot setback. Because if we approve it tonight, they may start development tomorrow. You don't know that they wouldn't. So, you know, it's concerning. 100 feet is very close. And 1,000 feet is really close. I mean, agriculture, the temperature dissipation in the atmosphere is going to affect a lot more than I think we're thinking about, because I don't know if we've done the research to even understand the potential hazards. And if we have, I haven't seen it. So. I just would like to know where these numbers came from. How did we pick 100 feet? How did we pick 1,000 feet? If we're going to back these numbers, then why are we backing these numbers?
Well, and I think, you know, Richard tried to address that. They're related to existing noise ordinance code, the 85 decibels, the 1,000 feet. There's a logarithmic drop-off of noise with 1,000 feet, which is what he was talking about.
Yes, but I personally live by the solar farms, and, you know, a constant hum all the time, I can promise you it's not great for your health. We didn't even know the solar farms were coming
See, and that's a really good point because there's noise and then there's vibration. And there's certain kinds of vibration that maybe you can't necessarily hear, but those are all things that through this amendment we're talking about, we could throw those things in there and say, hey, we've got concerns about vibration. We have concerns about these kinds of emissions. How is this thing going to be powered? Is it hydrocarbon? Is it, how is this thing going to work? I just think that the amendment would give us a tool to at least do something right now rather than kick the can down the road.
I feel like we are kicking the can down the road by not looking at data now.
Yeah.
So is there a suggested source of verifiable data? I know when you look at reports, you've got reports that are funded by the builders, and they say one thing, right? It's perfectly fine as long as you're within this distance and these parameters. But are there reports available through the federal government, like the EPA? I think the state of Texas is just now starting to address this. I don't know if they have any evidence-based reporting on the effects of data centers. I don't know where we would even go to look for that information at this point.
TCEQ would be a good resource, but I don't know that they have specific
Which
to
are
our
you aware of
situation.
any reports that are available?
RockovichDataCenter.com.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
RockovichDataCenter.com has statistics about data centers.
Richard, would you like to? Yeah, I'm sorry, the public hearing is closed, but Richard, to the point though, can you tell us kind of what information you've looked at, kind of the research that's gone into it? I know you and I have had some meetings. We've talked about various things that could be of environmental concern and so forth. So, we've been characterized as, as a commission of not knowing our stuff, but some of us have spent a lot of time on this. Some of us even have some industry kind of experience that we can draw on. So, Richard, if you would, I think it would help to kind of talk about what's gone into this so far, and I don't know if that will help you or not, Commissioner, but it would be interesting, at least for me, to kind of have him review that.
So, yeah, so those setbacks are minimum. It doesn't mean that it couldn't end up being greater than that for a specific project, but every data center is different. You've got some that are larger that would require a greater setback, which that can then be addressed in a development agreement, which would be a requirement. But you also have data centers that look nothing different from an office building, and unless you know it's a data center, you would think it's an office building, and you could be standing right outside of it and hear nothing but the traffic on the highway. So that's the point of the 100-foot minimum, and also even the 1,000. That doesn't mean that a development agreement couldn't stipulate something greater than that.
Which I think was the point that Commissioner Mancha was making. At least it's a starting point.
And the way to really enforce that is through the development agreement, and then depending on the type of data center that we're talking about, that can have the stipulations in it specifically that addresses what needs are required through that particular development.
Okay, thank you.
So I think a valid question has come up. So once that agreement is set in place, whose job then is it to enforce those stipulations?
Can I get help with that answer?
I think it's about really just putting into the development agreement what the needs are and putting in their compliance requirements such that there is a mechanism for receiving that information on a regular basis and not just putting it in a contract and having it be one and done and not reviewing it regularly.
So we would leave it up to the developers to provide that data?
No, it's not up to the, it's not up to the developers necessarily. Again, it's about what you negotiate in that development agreement.
Right, so we negotiate something. So my question was, whose job is it to review and enforce what is in the agreement?
Without knowing the specifics of what you're trying to enforce, I couldn't say one specific person.
Let's talk about the decibel level. If we have a specific use agreement that says it has to be below 85 decibels at a certain range, who's going to go out and check that, and who's going to enforce that? What department does that fall under?
I mean, that's probably one of the easier things to enforce that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, but I think Public Works could do that.
County Fire Marshal.
Public Works, okay.
Whichever department, that is not my necessarily like area of expertise, but it would again depend on the requirement, but a decibel amount is much easier to enforce compliance than a lot of other requirements that we want in there.
There's many things that would need to be monitored for this, and we don't have adequate resources to even implement the systems to monitor it.
And that's exactly why it's not a one-size-fits-all answer and part of a conversation.
And it's hard to approve it when we don't have a system to monitor the things that we're saying we're going to require.
So, and that's, I think that's a fair point that, that you're making. So a question that I've had about that is, and thanks for us beginning this conversation, because it's something I was thinking about too, and you're really talking about kind of down the road, right? So let's say, you know, how could a city recover its costs for monitoring if we had to monitor the applicant, you know, whoever builds something here? Is there a way in the development agreement to say, because you're bringing this to our community, you therefore have to compensate the city for any environmental monitoring, for example, or whatever? Could that be put into the development agreement?
Yeah, I mean, there are administrative costs and operational costs that are put into agreements all the time.
So it could be made cost neutral if they're putting, you know, if we have to enforce something, then we could require that they pay our costs to enforce whatever those standards are. Is that correct?
As long as it is in the agreement.
Okay. And so it's the development agreement that provides the rules. So there's two things that I think are important here. So there's the development agreement, which establishes what the conditions would be for allowing that development to occur, and then should that development happen, the rules for how they will operate within a community. And actually, this is something that cities do all the time. You look at like traffic impact studies and stuff like that, and a developer says, well, we're going to have, you know, this, you know, whatever traffic impact, and then the store comes in and it's 3 times what they said. The city has a mechanism for addressing that. And what I'm hearing you say is that in a use permit like we're talking about, we could build in a verbiage that says that they are responsible to compensate the city for doing whatever monitoring is necessary to ensure their compliance.
Correct, and it could either be, you know, for example, a flat amount. For example, you know, you are paying the city X amount a year to do X, Y, and Z, or it could be a reimbursement. We have agreements right now where we are reimbursed for certain works that we do by private companies, and then it's more of a bill to bill. So if in one year it's 10,000 and in another year it's 30,000, we're still being made whole. And those are the very intentional conversations and decisions that need to happen between the city and the developer and specific to the project.
But I do agree that it needs to be independently collected and monitored, for sure. Even if they're paying for it, we should be selecting whoever is monitoring.
Absolutely.
Good conversation. Any other thoughts or things that you want to address? Go ahead.
So, one of the committees I was fortunate enough to be part of when we first moved out here was the CERT committee, the Citizens Emergency Response Task Force. And it's such a group of citizens that come together to assist and aid the police and fire, other first responders when there's catastrophe. So my question is this, with this particular type of use, there are generally, with the large-scale electronic data transfer stations, there are generally specific type of batteries other hard minerals that don't really respond well to traditional fire suppression techniques. And so what I've heard from other communities that are grappling with the same issues is that they had to make special requirements on the fire department to make sure that if something caught on fire, lightning strike, whatever, building caught on fire, they could come in there and they weren't just bringing the regular hook and ladders to deal with the issues. So what can we do to help protect our city in the event that there's a fire at one of these facilities? Is it going to be incumbent on us to get the equipment and all of the suppression needed, or can it be incumbent, we put that in a special use stipulation that they provide all of the suppression technology required?
I think what we can do is ask the experts, which is the fire department, and in any conversations we've had with them, they have said that this is not any different than having to train for any specific use of a new industry coming into town. That said, again, as project details come in, if the fire chief advised that there were costs above and beyond, then either those costs would need to be borne by the company, or again, we are still in a due diligence period, so nothing is done.
So we would have a way and a time period to address that issue and then determine the best solution and figure out if we have to come up with the equipment and charge them for it, or if they need to install it on premise and have it monitored like we would any other fire suppression.
Those would all be things that need to be addressed before the development agreement is signed. And someone stated here earlier tonight that once it's a development agreement, there's no public input, et cetera, but I believe the development agreements do go through council, and so they would be heard again.
City council.
Yes, sorry.
And then I guess the same question would come up for the impact on the electrical system and grid. So time and time again, I hear that the power consumption is enormous, and even if they try to defer that with their own power generation, it still puts a load on the grid. So the electric company has to beef it up, and then everybody's rates go up. How do we defend against that type of situation?
I would say that there's a lot of misinformation out there about electric in general, and there is such a long line to get on the grid that these companies are not going to be able to tie into it for the foreseeable future. And so it's very important to see what their alternative methods of self-generation are and have conversations there, as well as continue to try to educate ourselves with accurate information as far as what would happen if and when they can one day tie into the grid. But that's not going to be in the next several years.
So if that's the case, it sounds like we have a couple years, right? So why can't we take a few weeks to make sure we have numbers? I mean, surely we could come up with data in 2 weeks if we're trying to rush things. I mean, again, 100 feet is real close. I still don't have data.
And just for clarification, what do you mean we have a couple years? Are you referring to the power?
Grid. I mean, if
So,
they can't get this going
so what she was saying is because they can't tie into the grid now, they're going to be bringing their own power, which means, right, which you were talking about environmental concerns, and you're talking about, okay, well, what kind of fuel are they going to be using, and what's the efficiency of those generators, and it brings up all of that kind of stuff. We don't have any mechanism to even question that at this point without this amendment passing. I really appreciate what you're trying to do to be thoughtful and to take time, but understand there's not a mechanism for the city to stop that.
I'm a scientist. I have a degree in biology, and I need data to make an informed decision. It's just the scientific process. This is not showing me any
according to the protocol for planning and zoning, if we were to not take a vote, table this, what happens then?
Come back in 2 weeks.
The public notice process would require longer than 2 weeks. So we wouldn't be coming back in 2 weeks. It would be a month at the soonest, more than likely. But again, those are minimum requirements. You might have, for example, let's say we're talking about a data center that looks like an office building, that sounds like an office building, something of that nature. 100 feet would be more than adequate for something that's like an office building.
Show me data that shows that.
Why is your EDC here? Think about that.
I need, why do you say that? What makes you think that a data center can be right there and we're just fine sitting here?
Because there are data centers in the DFW area that you wouldn't even realize are data centers unless you knew that.
It still can emit carbon monoxide, which there is no detection besides a proper equipment system. So, yeah, you might not notice things. That doesn't mean things aren't happening. Have you seen the Providence
Okay.
Center?
All right.
Have you seen it?
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
All right.
It's 12 buildings.
What?
Yeah, 12 buildings. I heard that. Count one.
So, what additional information could we gain at this point? I'm not for rushing a decision, and if we're gonna take a month, before we address this again, what additional information could we gather that would change what we're doing?
Sorry, the public hearing is closed. The question is to the director.
I mean, I guess what information would you, I don't know.
So I think, well, what we need to do as a commission, if that's the desire that we get additional information, more data, as Commissioner Thrasher's saying, then we need to direct staff, or I don't know that we can direct staff, we need to tell staff or director what it is we would like staff to do, and then they will get back to us with that, and he could, tell us how long that's going to take, but we need to be clear about what our intentions are as a commission so that he knows what to do next.
How is he gonna start putting restrictions if he don't have nothing to go by? How's he gonna say, okay, guys, you don't have nothing? He needs to start on something so he can say, okay, guys, let's do this, let's do that. You don't have nothing.
But please.
Here's the challenge. Every data center is different, and without being able to evaluate the specific data center, it's hard to know what would need to go in the development agreement to begin with. So I'm not sure what I would be able to bring back in a month or 2 months or a year or 2 years or 5 years. This is the starting point.
So Commissioner Thrasher, since this is something that you feel strongly about, could you help us out with maybe articulating what it is you would like staff to do?
I just feel like if we are going to have a set amount of distance to require these, and I understand that they could set back further than 100 feet, but some of them are going to toe that line. And if we allow this to happen, I just want to make sure that the cows on the other side of that fence that we're going to eat, that the people who, there needs to be some kind of adequate reason as to why we're saying, well, 100-foot setback. checklist of things that we can look at, so we can say, okay, well, now I can look at this information that they want to do this here and compare that to data centers that exist in the real world. There has to be something to compare to. You can't tell me this is a completely unique data center. There's a lot of these in the world, not just in the US. So there have to be studies on places that are larger than ours that already have the funding in place to look at this a little more thoughtfully and independently. It just doesn't make sense to me that we would rush this part of the process, which is critical to making sure our city is safe, when we've already taken plenty of time for this project. You know, 2 years, and now we're gonna push it through. We've been working on it since May. That's a pretty fast turnaround for a major zoning ordinance amendment. Mine personally took 4 months for a private tattoo studio. So it's just odd to me that this is so urgent.
Well, and I think some of that urgency comes from the fact that, you know, this is coming and we don't have something in place right now to try and deal with it, and I think that's where the urgency is.
I get that, but
Yeah.
if we're going to act, we need to act thoughtfully.
So the data would be project specific, and right now we can't even ask the question. This text amendment would allow us to ask the question. It would allow us to have something in place. So.
Okay.
Would it be appropriate to contact other cities that have?
I have looked at other cities. A lot of cities don't have a lot in place. I looked at Fort Worth. Fort Worth doesn't have anything in place. I looked at several other communities, and I was at a loss for anything. The best I could find in a couple locations was a definition. I think the problem is a lot of other cities are working on this at the same time, but in the meantime, we need something in place that separates data centers from heavy industrial uses. This is the starting point. If this gets prolonged any longer, then I'm not sure how to answer that question right now.
I mean, from the limited research I've just done, I mean, 2640 feet seems to be a standard transit smart growth hub regional framework restriction. I don't understand why 100 feet is adequate. That seems very, very close to me.
Again, that's a minimum.
I understand that it's a minimum. I've heard that a few times. I still don't know why it's the minimum.
All right. Good discussion.
Can we ask that the minimums be raised to resolve that particular issue?
Wait, say that again.
Can we ask that the minimums be raised in order to resolve this issue?
Good question. What distance would you feel more comfortable with?
That is the question. I mean, I've done research personally and seen that it can affect 2.5 to 3 miles outside of its diameter or circumference. I'm not a math person, but radius. There we go.
Perfect. Go 3 miles at a time.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
There you go.
Right now, we can't even ask them to do that because we don't have anything in place that defines it.
Correct. We can't ask them for nothing. Because we don't have nothing in place.
Well, why don't we do some research and see what an appropriate distance for setbacks would be for different kinds of data centers? And then we could actually look at a broader perspective of, well, if they're all within the same range, then we can set it at this. If it doesn't make a difference, then we can keep it as is. But 100 feet, I mean, you can almost fit that far. Like,
Depending on the type of data center, that number could even be lower. if we're talking about the kind that would look nothing more than an office building.
Okay.
I don't understand. It's still a data center.
Okay, let me see, I feel like we're spinning our tires. Let's see if we can get somewhere. So, Commissioner Thrasher has made it clear that she's not comfortable with the amendment as written, wants more time for staff to study, bring it back to the commission at a later time. I'm hearing from Commissioner Mancha that you're concerned that there is nothing in place now and something's better than nothing, at least, you know, even for somebody who wants to stop all data centers, you at least have a tool to do that with this amendment, is what I was hearing you say. And I think you're trying to reconcile all of this and make it work. You've had questions about some different things and how they would impact the city long-term, which I really appreciate you thinking about. So let me just ask y'all, you know, we can go over this stuff, you know, till the cows come home, as they say, but I don't think we're making any progress unless somebody wants to make a motion, put it to a vote. Certainly it could be tabled again. It's up to y'all what we're gonna do.
I make a motion to table it for 4 weeks, that way we can do more research hopefully and look at why these numbers are in place.
I make a motion, we pass it.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. So Commissioner Mancha has made a motion. Is there a second? Okay, hold on. We've got one, we can only do one motion at a time. So Commissioner Thrasher, has a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Okay.
I would second that motion if we knew what data we were going to be bringing back and all. If we're just going to defer it for a month and we get no supported data to make any changes to the amendment, then we're just wasting everybody's time, asking these fine people to come back and speak to us once again on the same issues. So I would support that motion if we knew what data was going to be coming back.
How about the 24th of August? That should be 2 meetings away. If we table it until August 24th, that gives us almost a full month of 4 weeks.
It gives us a time frame, but what kind of data can we get back in order to validate or change?
Well, there was some data provided from the audience.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, our public hearing's closed. We need to get busy. Okay. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, wow, the ADD, I have it copied in a minute. I mean, if it's a specific date that you need to table it, then we can come up with a specific date. But
So that's part of it.
there has been new data provided and new resources provided tonight, and, you know, we only got the email of this zoning ordinance amendment, a week ago? You know, to really understand things fully, I don't know that we really need to make a decision tonight. I think waiting 1 more month, if this has been in the talks for 2 years, shouldn't hurt the system, and if it does, then I hope they're prepared for what's coming. Yeah.
So
I don't think the city would appreciate that.
we receive comments from the citizens after the meeting? I know this is not the appropriate time, but can we do that after the meeting to find out what studies are available?
Yeah, and I think that would be very helpful. We've been provided with some information from one of the folks that addressed us, and I think that's perfectly appropriate. If people have additional information that they would like to provide afterwards, I think that would be welcome. Would you agree, Director?
I was just going to comment, a lot of these other concerns are things that can be addressed specifically through the development agreement for the specific development, like we've said already.
Yeah,
And that's probably the better avenue to address those things.
Is that done in an open forum? I'm not familiar with.
The development agreement does go back to city council then.
It goes to city council.
Correct? Yeah.
Those meetings are open. Just to confirm that those meetings are open to the public, or they're not?
EDC meetings and council meetings are open to the public, yeah.
Okay. So the public would have a chance to weigh in on what data is being collected and looked at and being required. Is that correct?
I mean, I believe so. They're public meetings. I'm not sure how EDC, it's been a while since I've been to one of those. Yes, please.
The development agreement would be between city council and the developer. So it would not necessarily come to an EDC meeting. Anything that either the EDC or council passed would have to go through a formal meeting in which public forum is welcome. But ultimately, and Scott, tell me if I'm wrong, it goes between council and it would go on a council meeting. The development agreement, yes.
So, once again, so that particular agreement would be open to the public. You would receive comments.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are there parts of the development agreement that are at least consistent, even though, I mean, if the development agreement is negotiated individually, is there some kind of minimum standards that can be adopted so that every applicant is still treated at least in some kind of consistency? I mean, we don't know what's in the developer agreement, so, and knowing that it's not gonna come back to us again, this is pretty much our last chance of having any say-so in what happens with them.
That is a very excellent, specific question for us to answer at that next meeting. Development agreements happen with housing developments, with retail developments, with industrial developers, and so whether or not there's a minimum standard across the board or within any of those specific uses, I cannot tell you right now, but because that is a very specific question, I can certainly work to get that answer for you.
And also the specific development would still need the specific use permit. Without this text amendment, it wouldn't require it. So if, let's say, a data center was ready to come and submit, a site plan within the next 4 weeks, they wouldn't be required to go through the specific use permit process. And the longer this draws out, the more time passes that a data center would not be required to go through the specific use permit process, in which case you would not see that at this particular meeting. You would not be able to evaluate it at this particular meeting.
I think if the data center is that strategic that they're gonna come in before we actually do it, then that already speaks very poorly to them.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, and then were you proposing an amendment to that motion? Or clarification on it?
Clarification, yes.
So maybe if you can articulate that and see if if Commissioner wants to accept that as part of her motion.
All right, so the amendment I would make to that motion is that we have a specific date that we return to the subject, no longer than 4 weeks, and that we have specific information and reviewed reports that are available concerning the minimal setbacks for these definitions of data center.
You accept that as part of your motion?
Yeah.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. And Director Reinhardt, are you clear on what the motion is? Any questions?
Not really. So you're saying that specific dates be set, or?
A date that we readdress the issue, so not to be more than 4 weeks from now, right?
Well, it would have to be at least 4 weeks, if not more from now, but yeah.
So 4 to 6 weeks?
4 weeks would be great. And then we have specific reports that are reviewed from other communities that we can draw a conclusion on as to what the minimum setback should be for different types of data centers. And if I understand it correctly, there is a particular data center that's looking to come in at this point, so maybe we can classify that and look specifically to that type of data center and what other communities have done.
And if we cannot, then
So I think the motion, if I'm hearing it correctly, is to table this item for 4 to 6 weeks. And I think you've given pretty clear instruction about what you would like to have happen prior to that next meeting. So that's the motion.
I will say, based on my conversations with people from Provident, I don't know exactly what their timeline is, but in talking with them about their schedule, I would not feel right making them go through the specific use permit process if this gets tabled again, because this would stretch out this process to a date where they could potentially be further. Now, I know there's no development agreement yet, but it could potentially stretch out that date a little bit further to where we wouldn't be able to require them to go through the specific use permit process.
And I think that's understood. I think Commissioner Thrasher has indicated that she understands that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a real trade-off. We can extend this for at least 4 weeks to get more data,
But it wouldn't apply to Provident.
but that creates a loophole for somebody that's coming in within the first 4 weeks. So,
Go ahead. You had a comment, Commissioner? Because we have a motion on the floor, motion and a second. So if you have any comments, now's the time to comment on that. Did you want to?
I mean, listen to Richard. Somebody said we created a loophole, but basically it's what we're doing. We're creating a loophole for them. They can come back next month and say, I did everything you asked me. You don't have anything in place. I can build that thing without a problem. You can't make them do nothing. Am I right? Tell me if I'm wrong.
Loophole existed before this, though. If we're going to do this correctly.
Am I right or wrong?
We're in the same boat. We're in the same boat, yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. If not, then we'll go ahead and call for a vote on that.
Can I just say one thing?
Okay.
I'm confident that if you want to extend this another 4 to 6 weeks, this company is trying to be a good partner to the city, answer those questions, and do things the right way. So I would rather have you guys feel comfortable in your decisions than try to rush it to keep them from going through some loophole because they are trying to be a good partner. We want to make sure that they're a good partner, and we want all parties that are participating in this conversation, in this negotiation, and in this potential project to be comfortable.
Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Lupe, how are you voting?
What's that? Okay, so the vote is for the motion made by Commissioner Thrasher. You would vote no if you're against her amendment, or her motion, excuse me.
Then we'd be in deeper trouble here.
Well, that means that I have to step in and vote if you vote no. You put me.
I'm actually not for that, but I say hi. Okay.
You'll say aye?
I say hi.
You'll go along with that?
Go along with it.
What a good guy. Look at that.
Even though
Either way, you need to vote. Because we need you for the quorum, so I still need your vote. So
Correct.
Unanimous table?
Yeah, I appreciate you all being, to use your term, thoughtful about this. We all have some different perspectives. I think Commissioner Mancha, you have a certain opinion about this. This doesn't end for that position. It just means that we're going to go through a little more process on this. So you all do your homework. You folks that have things that want to share with us, we welcome that and we appreciate that. We still have some more business to do, so we're going to move on from item number 5. Not very much, but we do have a little bit of business. Item number 6 is something we put on our agenda. This is for any comments from people who wish to address the commission on any items that were not on the agenda tonight. So any new matters that were not on the agenda tonight? Is there anybody here who would like to address the commission? Yes, sir.
I wish you all would get this sound system fixed so some of us can hear what is being said.
Okay. Yeah, so can you tell me who could you hear and who could you not hear? All right, there we go. If you could tell me, could you hear any of us? If okay. So it's the system. All right. Okay. All right. I apologize about that. Okay. All right.
On the note of that,
okay, thank you. Appreciate the feedback. Okay, so that mic's working. And I think the May 11th meeting, some of you were there. Were you able to hear us okay at the May 11th meeting? Because we did the audio different. So we used that roving mic, and I didn't have any complaints. So we'll usually there's like 3 or 4 people there. Like there's one guy over there who's usually a regular. Is that Rigo? Like Rigo will sit here in front, and maybe 1 or 2 other people. So we don't get complaints about that, and you just didn't hear what I said, but it was good. Okay. So hearing no other comments from the audience, staff report right here.
We didn't get to finish. He wasn't done talking. You cut him off. He cut him off, and then you guys kept talking over him.
I'm sorry.
Was there an additional comment?
He says he's done. All right, staff, go ahead.
no, I think we have more comments.
Who?
Public comments.
Oh, you? Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't know you were raising your hand. You were pointing at somebody else.
Oh, Mike's not up here, so I guess I have to just project my voice. Don't worry about it. I'll project. It's okay. I'll project.
Oh, it's
They
fine.
can hear me.
We can hear you.
You can hear me fine. Trust me. Not as well as you want to, but.
Just say it.
Anyways, look, you guys did the right decision. The question is, you gotta do this. I pulled all those records. They've been communicating for 24 months plus. Okay? Why all of a sudden it just shoved through? Because something big's happening next month that they want to pass. Why do you think your mayor and your EDC president just stepped out, walked out, left her by herself? Why is she at a planning and zoning commission? It should be Richard, but it looks like he's now on board with the Providence Data Center more than he should. We've been asking for these water studies. They just voted to start doing these water studies about a month ago. How are you going to go ahead and put all this stuff in place with all of this without having that information in front of you? I know you're concerned about that. What about the other studies? They've had 24 months, and all of a sudden we want to keep it hidden. Data center just finally got out because you put it on the agenda back in May, I believe it was, when we were here the first time. And now you're trying to just speed run it now that the moratorium got rescinded on the 9th. You posted it on the 10th to have this meeting. Think about that for a second. Abbott, Trump, they're trying to push all these in here. Abbott says he's against it. Now he's putting all these regulations in place. So why are we still trying to speed run this through? Because they stand to make money. I don't know about her particular, but I know this one does $3.1 million. They got the contract for Providence. Okay, Gwen Orr, because this isn't just a city project. This is a county and city project combined. That's why they had to rescind that. That's why it's in the unincorporated. Guess who stands to make $12.75 million? Gwen Orr. Huh. Orr, Angela Orr, Will Orr. It's all being orchestrated at the county. That's all political theater. Why do you think she's here to do damage control for Richard? He can't handle it, she's speaking. Okay? Bottom line is, I'm going to be done here in a second, but you guys either get on board and do what's right for the citizens, which I know you are. I hope you are, because I kind of got that feeling a little bit towards the end. I think you just went along, so you didn't have to put that on him, because I see him in council meetings. Why did your mayor step down? Why did your president step down? Why did they just sit here to listen to the rest of our comments? Because they're dirty. I've got the proof. You asked that earlier. I've got the proof. Don't make it come for open records on you guys next. I love open records requests. Just ask the ESC that stepped down.
All right. Richard, did you have anything from staff? Go ahead.
Were there any other public comments? Comments from the public that can't talk?
Okay.
Can y'all hear me like the microphone? You go ahead.
Just a reminder, meetings are the second and fourth Monday as needed. The next meeting we're looking at is August 24th. The big item on that agenda is going to be to look at the comprehensive plan that's been being worked on for the last year and a half, 2 years. Also looking at a joint meeting between Planning and Zoning, City Council, and the Comprehensive Plan Action Committee the week of August 17th. That has not been scheduled yet. It was going to be scheduled for, I believe, the 11th. That's not going to work. So please keep an eye on your email. It could either be, it's going to be the week of the 17th, either the 17th, 18th, or 19th. I'm not sure which day that's going to end up being yet. More to come on that in the coming days. I imagine that's going to be scheduled within the next few days. I do want to comment a little bit on some previous communications. So back in April, I was contacted on the zoning ordinance uses. It would have been really easy for me to respond to that email saying that data centers fit within heavy industrial uses. But looking at that topic, my response was that the best method would probably be to do a text amendment and require a specific use permit. That's what my response was. Now, after the fact, after that email was sent, I also attended a webinar on the data center topic. What I learned in that webinar was that communities that don't have any kind of thing in place, that don't have a definition in place, are really in a difficult place to say anything when a data center does request to come to town. That's the purpose of the text amendment. It's not saying that we're in support or opposition of any particular project. It is just defining something so that we have a starting point. So that's kind of the course of events. But anyway, so those are my comments. I don't have any update on online maps. Again, if you're interested in having those links, just let me know.
Great, thank you. And thank you all for attending. This meeting is adjourned.